Hello. Thank you for listening. This is the near death experience of Chris, and this event occurred on April the 12th of 2000. Open quote. Drug overdose that was fatal. He woke up when he was receiving CPR in the emergency room. I was taking mushrooms, smoking marijuana, and huffing nitrous oxide. I had just filled a massive balloon full of nitrous and was pulling a huge drag from it. As I did, my vision went all stars and tingles like when you close your eyes and push on your eyelids, only this was more beautiful. I felt a warm tingle flow from the very top of my head work its way down through my shoulders, and then it got to my navel. My entire upper torso was numb and like electricity was coursing through it, but without the pain or acrid stench. The tingles continued down through my pelvic area and around my backside. There was a slight pain in my testes, more like a dull ache that quickly subsided. The tingles worked their way to my anus and seemed to build in intensity until they violently tore their way into my rectum. I remember a feeling of complete and utter love and ecstasy. I wanted to moan out, but already numb face wouldn't cooperate. My already numb face wouldn't cooperate. I suddenly found myself at the top of the room. My friends were down below me, and I could see through the dense cloud of marijuana smoke that they were pointing and laughing at me hysterically. I squinted, unable to see what they were pointing at until finally the smoke wafted, and I could see they were intrigued by the massive erection that my pants were straining to contain. I had a brief but humorous thought that if I was ever going to go down on myself, now was the time. It sounds crass now, but I really thought that. Weird. It didn't really feel like a dream, other than the lack of gravity betrayed the laws of physics, so my brain told me that this must not be real. Other than that, it felt totally vivid. The effects of the drugs that I had ingested were not felt in my astral projection of myself. The fear set in soon after. I was afraid and oddly angry with my friends for still laughing at my now dead body. I wanted to kick at them, but feared my foot would pass straight through their body, so I dared not try, as I intuitively felt I would lose all sanity if my theory of my intangibility were made true. I watched in stunned silence as my friends, who apparently thought I had passed out, began to draw on my face with permanent marker. One went so far as to pull his flaccid penis out and pose with it by my face as another took a picture with a Polaroid camera. I couldn't believe that this was to be my fate. I finally lost all composure and began to swing wildly at my comrades as they finished the handlebar mustache they had drawn on my face. My astral self was swinging so hard that I went clear through the room, passing through a wall and into the adjoining bathroom. It was unbelievable that I could see the hollow voids and wiring in the walls as I passed through them. I felt the urge to wake up if this was in fact a dream, but I knew all too well that it wasn't. I glanced down in the room I had ended up in to see another acquaintance of mine violently vomiting in the toilet below me. I noted that though I could hear his retching, I thankfully could not smell his vile stench. As I closed my eyes in disbelief of my plight, I suddenly felt a strange feeling of acceleration. I kept my eyes closed for a couple seconds. The acceleration was exhilarating and then terrifying. It just kept getting faster and faster and faster until I felt as if I would be destroyed if I encountered a speck of dust. This was still my physics-based mind trying to delegate normal properties to my paranormal experience. Suddenly, I felt as if I was in a bright light. It was tinged with blue and silver, like a plasma ball you see on sci-fi movies. There was an electricity to the ether. It was unreal. I was floating. My entire body, if I had one, was invisible. Even my eyelids and head were invisible. I tried to close my eyes, but couldn't. I don't know if I was seeing through my eyelids or if I ceased to have them. Suddenly, the feeling of speed returned. I grunted, if not out loud, then in my mind, as I went from 0 to light speed, or so I assumed. The tunnel never changed perspective. I felt as if I was falling into it at amazing speed, but the tunnel appeared to be falling with me, as I never seemed to close in on it. There was an ever-increasing sound enveloping below me. It was a strange, metallic shirp, shirp, like when swords meet in battle. As odd as that description sounds, then again, chirp, chirp, ping. That ping scared the hell out of me. It was so loud and direct, it shook me to the core, if I still had one. I realized that maybe I was on my way to hell, and this was the sound of Satan's bullwhip. It doesn't make sense now, but that's the thought that occurred to me. There was a loud shoop, like air being blown out of a balloon suddenly. Then there was a white, all-encompassing light, white and bright as anything I could describe, though not painful to the eyes. This faded oddly to a white sand beach. I thought maybe this would be heaven. I scanned my horizon. It was the most beautiful beach imaginable. Literally, I believe that everyone's version of the afterlife is custom fitted to that person. This was my construct. I suddenly was aware of another presence. There was a man in his late 40s with a 3-day beard growth. I felt normal now. I felt as if I felt as I had before, with my body intact. I asked him, "Are you God?" He said in broken English, "No, mi llama es Peco." I don't speak Spanish, so I may have spelled that wrong. I was struck with the feeling of absurdity. I have died and gone on to spend eternity with an immigrant named Peco, who can't even speak English? I did a gut check to try to ascertain if I was in fact dead. Either I'm dead, or this is one hell of a buzz, I thought. Not laughing, but just registering it to myself. Suddenly, Peco began to talk to me, not in words, but in pictures and concepts that he relayed to me via mind speak or telepathy. But I think telepathy supposedly worked the way verbal communication did regardless. I asked in my head if there is reincarnation, and he answered to the positive by showing me some of my former lives. I could see different aspects of these lives, and they were not familiar, but they were strangely comforting. Like looking at a younger brother or something, too odd to describe. I asked Peco where we were, and he showed me a mental picture of a planet more green than blue. He minded me the word, Midus 22. I asked him if this was another world, and he answered back that it was not only was another planet, but another dimension parallel to my own. I asked if this planet was inhabited, and he just nodded as to say, over there. I turned around and saw a family interacting much as they would on Earth. They were throwing giant green stones that were shaped in spheres. I marveled at their strength, and Peco minded to me that it was the way gravity affected certain objects, not the strength of the children. I was astounded. I asked Peco how long it took me to get to Midus. High school physics taught me that you could not travel faster than the speed of light. Peco looked at the watch on his arm, shook it, held it to his ear, then shrugged in a totally annoying way, even in the afterlife, I thought. He minded me that I had not traveled distances, but through dimensions. He gave me a brief lesson using rudimentary examples. In my mind, I saw a bedsheet. Objects roll around, traveling to different places on the sheet. Large objects make an indent in the sheet. This is an object's gravity. Large objects, making a large indent, have other small objects rolling into it, apparently in an orbit of sorts. Then he took a dagger, in my mind, and stabbed the sheet, sticking his finger through the sheet. He then pointed at me. So I had not traveled a distance to get to Midus. I had traveled through the fabric of space-time. So this is death, I thought. Cool. Odd, I know, but that was an appropriate response at the time. This was all done without speaking. To make a long story shorter, Peco and I spent time walking around. He explained different aspects of the alien environment. It was nice. It was a very pleasant planet, like Montana in the springtime. I began to feel a burning sensation in my chest, the most intense pain of my life/afterlife. Peco sent me a message. He told me that it was not my time yet. He relayed that though we had spent over an hour together, time was not proportionate between this universe and my own, so only a short time had passed on Earth. I thought to him a thanks before I had a sense of falling. Not the sudden and intense acceleration as before, just like falling a great distance. I woke up on Earth to my friend's mother, who was a nurse at the local hospital, performing CPR on my body. I was so cold. I didn't know if it was the contrast of the heat from Midus or the lack of blood flow. She told me that I had stopped breathing for over 10 minutes. She actually told me this a little later, but for the sake of time. As she wiped my face with a wet napkin type thing, she told me that I was being sent in for a CAT scan, and that any time you are not breathing for a period of time, there will be brain damage. Though the CAT scan shows no mass or bleeding, all clear. I recuperated, and due to the circumstances, I never told my story until now. Though the one thing my friends cannot explain is how I knew who blank to break my foot off in. They never thought that I would be floating above by the ceiling when they were taking pictures and writing on me. So I knew just who to hold accountable. Commentary from Paul, one of our Spanish-speaking readers. Chris D. said the guy said, "Mi llama es Peco." It doesn't make sense in Spanish. The correct use of the words are "mi amo," or "I call myself." The last part must be his name. I think it's likely his name was Espejo. He was saying, "I call myself Mirror," possibly El Espejo, the mirror, end quote. And that was an interesting story. I hope I didn't lose too many of you in the beginning with the description of the party scenes and the ongoings there. There are some questions, although I thought that just going over the first part, I thought the description of the tunnel was pretty neat, and the story already is pretty humorous, and the spending attorney with a mid-40s Spanish person that doesn't speak English, that would be incredible. So, there are some questions. Question, let's go. At the time of your experience, was there an associated life-threatening event? Answer, no, accidental clinical death. I wasn't breathing. At first, I was concerned, but after a while, I learned to live with it, or actually not. I learned that I wasn't living without it. Question, did you feel separated from your body? Answer, yes, I was outside my body looking down through the top of my head. I could see straight through to my toes. It was the most awe-inspiring event. Oh, that's neat. Question. Did time seem to speed up or slow down? Answer. There was no time. I thought this to myself until I asked Peco what time it was, and he told me that there was no time anymore. This is how I knew there was no time. Question of comparing your hearing. Answer. I heard the most unusual Shirp, Shirp, then silence, then Shirp, Shirp, ping. And I remember the ping really scared the hell out of me the first time. But after a while, I realized that this is what my true self considered annoying. So I grew to hate it. Question. Did you pass into or through a tunnel? Answer. Yes, it was a bright white tunnel of pure light, like staring at the sun through a telescope, but it didn't hurt my eyes. It was a bit like looking at a sparkler after your eyes had adjusted to the dark, but without the sparks and the smoke. Question. Did you encounter or become aware of any deceased or alive beings? Answer. Yes, I met a man named Peco. He was a stranger to me, but he seemed to know my entire history. Question. Did you see an unearthly light? Answer. Yes, I saw light. It was electric, blue tinged with gold. Question. Did you seem to enter some other unearthly world? Answer. I was in a dimension parallel to this one. I was told that this universe was called Midus 22. It had the same gravity as our planet, but the specific gravity of objects was skewed. It was strange. Children were playing catch with boulders and large wood objects. Question. Did you suddenly seem to understand everything? Answer. I understand now that I am here to open a chain of orange Juliuses. Question. Orange Julius, that one took me back. I'm sorry. Let's see if there's anything more about that. Question. Did scenes from your past come back to you? My past flashed before me out of control. I learned that I was a Polish immigrant in a past life. I was tragically killed in a horse and carriage accident. I saw my children from that life and marveled at how much they looked like my children from this life. Question. Did scenes from the future come back to you? Answer. Scenes from the world's future. The only future events I became aware of were not very specific. They were limited to the Orange Julius and being told that I would awaken, which I did. Question. Did you come to a border or point of no return? Answer. I'm not certain if Peco made the decision or the aliens that were hugging me. Question. What is your religion prior to your experience? Answer. Conservative/fundamentalist. Question. What is your religion now? Answer. Conservative/fundamentalist. Answer. Question. Did you have a change in your values and beliefs because of your experience? Answer. Yes. I have a better understanding of how everything is connected. Thermal dynamics, space and time continuum, extraterrestrial life. Question. Was the experience difficult to express in words? Answer. Yes. It was like when you float on your back in a pool for a long time and you kind of lose feeling of your body. Only there was no water. I wasn't on my back and I was dead. Or so they tell me. Question. Do you have any psychic, non-ordinary, or other special gifts after your experience that you did not have before the experience? Answer. Yes. I can sense when it is going to rain. My friends are all baffled by my new ability. I'm not sure if it was the Midus atmosphere that unlocked latent abilities on my part, or if it was my experience. Some people think it's because I watch the clouds, but this is not the case. I can feel the barometer drop, whether it be for storms or just pressure systems. The government, USA, has been in contact with me and are helping me explore these abilities. I wonder who told them. Question. Are there one or several parts of your experience that are especially meaningful or significant to you? Answer. The love. The newfound expression of my love, the soreness. Question. Have you ever shared this experience with others? Answer. Yes. People often consider me as having a weak mind. They believe that the mind altering substances had affected me. The phrase bad trip is often uttered. They will soon see. Question. Is there anything else you would like to add about your experience? Answer. Midus 22 has beach balls made out of emerald, but the specific gravity is different, so children can hurl an emerald that would weigh 300 pounds at your head and it just bounces off. Emeralds grow on the surface of the planet. End quote. End questions. Thank you for listening. If you don't listen all the way to the end, you wouldn't know that. Have a great day.